maybe drinking's your thing. Look at this drunken buffoon, proving that there doesn't always need to be criminal intent to cause serious criminal damage. Or maybe you're just an overprivileged poppycock, living on daddy's pension and protesting about the unfairness of capitalism.
Taking place under his roof while he was away, I can see all that better than my own mother's face. I am your gift. Part of me thinks a drink would be a good idea. The rest of me knows it's not, but I need something. Fight the sleep that's not sleep like Allison did. Down Main Street to the Stewart's convenience store, a block on, new chaos outside Municipal Hall, more cruisers, many from other jurisdictions. Utica, Schenectady, Albany, along with the black Explorers and Escalades that announced the arrival of federal agents. I duck into Stewart's and go straight to the shelf with those pure caffeine drink shots. 5 hours energy, on the label of the red little bottles in the front row. An hour more than you'll need. A voice, mine, needles from inside my skull. Grab one of the bottles, then grab another two. At the counter, waiting for the guy ahead of me to select the plumpest stick of beef jerky from the jar, I scan the postcards in the rack. The selection hasn't been replenished in years, so that only the local ones are left, yellowed at the edges, their corners bent. See that there actually is a Johnstown at Night one, along with one other that snares my attention. A photo of a grand house. A portico is propped on Roman pillars, symmetrical windows on either side, a glass lantern hanging over the front door. All of it painted white, a shrunken version of the president's residence in Washington, the caption below it, the Knox Mansion, the White House. You want a stamp with that? The cashier asked me. The beef jerky guy is gone. No stamp, but I'll take the card, and these, and this, I say, tossing a strip of jerky onto the counter. Outside the store, I down all 3 of the energy shots. I don't know if they're meant to work instantly or not, but I'm moving again. Marching on the White House. On the way, I read the small print paragraph on the back of the postcard. Built in 1898 by industrialist Charles B. Knox, the Knox Mansion is the pride of Johnstown, New York. Following Charles's death, his wife Rose lived on in the house for years. The property is now a thriving bed and breakfast operation. Not thriving anymore by the looks of it. I've run the 4 blocks south to where the house stands without fully realizing my legs were carrying me as fast as they were. Now stopped across the street from the one-time pride of Johnstown. Today it's considerably more run down than it appears on the postcard. Tattered Christmas garlands left from last year, or the year before, drooping over the upper floor windows. Pigeon shit streaked down the pillars. A rusted trampoline frame on the front lawn, looking like a snare trap for a passing giant. Nobody lives in the White House anymore. This is the place Allison saw but couldn't name. She was here. Possibly inside of it at one point. Possibly inside of it still. I make the first search on the ground for something hard to bring against the cellar door or rear window to get in. But another line of thinking tells me it would be a waste of time to search the rooms and hidden corners of the building. Thinking that tells me she's not here. Allison's school, the one she was headed to when she disappeared, is only a couple blocks to the east. This is the first place she fought to see and remember before being moved on to the next. I know because it didn't end here for her. It ended in darkness. Something she knew would be very bad. Don't let the dark sleep come. Which means the places Allison named in the reading aren't just points on a map. They're a sequence, a route, a breadcrumb trail. So what's the next stop? Fat guy. That could be anyone. That could be my brother. 41. There's nobody standing in the second floor window, which only means he's somewhere else inside. I pull out the keys Tim gave me, but there's no need. The front door not only unlocked, but open, a gap that blows out the antique air of the house. Tim? I try to make it sound friendly, like I'm here with a six-pack in my hand and I'm looking for someone to share it with. But my brother's name comes out for what it is. A demand. A summoning to a physical altercation he will lose. You here? Tim? Instead of the workshop attached to the kitchen down the hall, I found myself drifting up the stairs. Not to my old room, to my brother's, the one he's reclaimed since moving back in. Other than a mattress on the floor covered in what may be a half-dozen mismatched sheets, a clock radio flashing noon, and a duffel bag propped in the corner, there's nothing here. I'm not sure what I'm looking for anyway. A diary with a long confession written inside, a bundle of his blood-stained clothes. I pull the sheets off the bed, shake them out to see if anything falls, look under the mattress, dig an arm into the bottom of the duffel bag. That's where I find the pills. 4 bottles of amobarbital, all prescribed under the name of Clarence Thomas, none of them full. They may be his. God knows Tim would take whatever he needed to get some dream-free sleep, and take whatever he needed in the morning to rip up some floorboards or pull the old knob and tube wires out of the walls. But why so much of it? Putting a 12-year-old girl to sleep is one thing. Doing the same to a trained federal agent is another. You could never know how much it takes to knock somebody out. If this was his thinking, if my brother has done this, it explains why Allison couldn't find the right words in my reading of her mother. She was too out of it. The sleep that's not sleep, not a reference to death, but the effects of the sleeping pills he made her swallow. An overdose. And something else. If Tim is the one, he may have left the front door open on his way by in a vehicle with Fernandez in it. He may have come in to get something he'd forgotten, a 5th bottle of amobarbital. In the rush out, he didn't make sure he pulled the door closed. Where did he go after that? The burial ground. Wherever he is now is where they are. The spot where the Bone Man told him they had to go. His voice whispering instructions into my brother's ear, telling how deep he has to dig, when to start throwing the soil onto the nailed-on lid, how hard to pack the soil with the back of a spade when he was done. Not too deep if you want to hear them. His voice behind me. In the room. The smell, too, even stronger than before. It makes me drop the pill bottles so I can wipe the spit off my chin when I gag. The scratches, the screams. You want to feel that come up through the ground and into your feet. The Bone Man stands in the doorway of Tim's room. His long fingers clamped to the frame, his legs spread apart so that he takes up all of the space. As he speaks, he taps the long nail of his left index finger against the wall. Nowhere to go, Nathaniel. The nail stops tapping, scrapes over the plaster. The blackboard screech that hits me in the back teeth and fires a comet of pain down to my heels. I thought you were stronger than the others. It's why I gave you your special gift. But I was wrong about that. You're just yellow. His widening mouth, the click as his jaw opens past where it was meant to go. This is the Bone Man's smile. A shriveled, yellow pecker who can't keep his promises. He means Jalen Jackson. He means all the rest of them, too. The women. But also the men whose buried rages he spoke to as they slept in his house. The spell he cast that magnified their disappointments and fears and directed them toward a single purpose, an action that would show others what it is to love something, believe in something, and have it turn to nothing in an instant. By not stopping him, I failed to stop them. But I'm not stopping now. Standing straight, dropping Tim's pill bottle so that they roll around at my feet as if searching for a place to hide. At first, I squeeze my eyes shut, then open them again. The names Allison and Claire appear in my head as if projected titles on a black screen, But the truth is, what I'm about to do, I'm not doing for them. This is for me. My hands held out straight in front of me, a howl burning in my throat. I don't look away. From my launch forward to the moment all of me plows into the dead man and his arms wrapped tight around me, I show him that I can do it. I can see. 42. Coming to. It's always the same in my experience. The fact you're still alive, arriving in bits, none making much sense at first. In the past, they've included the reddened tip of a walking cane, brought against the side of my head by a barroom foe, a purple forest, a shag carpet I landed on, a rat's tail, precisely that. You hold on to this first glinting hook the world throws your way and hope it pulls you up. Right now, it's the bone man's skin. Patches of it glued to my shirt, my pant legs, along with blood that may be partly mine, partly his. He's real because of me. All the wishing to have been born into a different family, a different history, the drinking, the fights, the years of being alone. He uses all of this, like a vampire, except instead of blood, he feeds on hopelessness. On his own, he's merely a ghost, a trace of energy that can push its way through to our side to stand in front of a window. But with me clinging to him, clawing at him, trying to make him nothing again, he only becomes more powerful. A monster made of rotting parts. Mine. I'm sitting with my back against the wall in the second-floor hallway. The door to Tim's room still open, but the dead man isn't there anymore. There's only me struggling to move my fingers. When they don't respond, I try turning my head next, then my toes, knees, anything. Nothing but blinking works. Allison. Claire. Those titles up on the screen again. At first, I'm not sure who or what they're connected to, but they're important. They get me moving, piece by piece. When I'm on my feet, I pull out my phone to check the time. 11:02. Less than an hour left. My brother has dropped a pair of jeans and a t-shirt on the floor of his room. I'm taking off my own gore-spattered shirt and pants to throw his on when the phone rings. They found the teacher, Tillman says. Who? Marcuccio, Allison's gym teacher. The local police found him up the road in Adirondack State Park. Ditched his car and pitched a tent in the woods. Looks like he'd been there for the last 24 hours at least. They're searching the area now, in case that's where they are. Words. A cascade of them. Hard as pellets, but mostly meaningless. It takes a moment standing naked in my brother's room to gather them up one by one. Nate? You hearing this? I'm here. I'm hearing. It looks like we've got our guy. Because he ran away? And because they found something in the tent he'd brought with him. One of Allison's t-shirts. Her name on the collar. They're running tests on it now. Blood, fluids, the whole scan. But it's definitely hers. A souvenir. Looks like it. Something to keep for himself after we put her in the hole. Tillman exhales. A crashing tide in the earpiece. Listen, I'm not making any conclusions yet, he says. But from a profiling perspective, it lines up. It's what guys like him do. Okay. I'm pacing, my heart gulping in my chest. So what happens now? They've got Marcuccio at Municipal Hall. The Bureau agents they sent up are here now, questioning him. He's declined legal counsel so far, so that's good. I'm not talking about the teacher, I'm talking about Allison and Claire. We're hoping he gives them up. What if he doesn't? And who's we? You with them now? Because it sure as hell doesn't sound like it includes me. You don't think I want to find them? This isn't the way. There's got to be... I'm not in charge of this case anymore. Understand? The new team is. They're letting me hang around on the sidelines, but let's face it. I'm with you. We're the freak unit. But now an agent's gone missing. A suspect is in custody. The shit's got real. They're running the show. Can you get me in to see him? Maybe I could try to get a reading from him. You don't think I've already tried that? When Smalley's men brought Marcuccio in, I asked Smalley if you could do an interview with him. Begged him. He laughed in my goddamn face. Ask him again. Ask all of them. Don't they get it? We've got less than an hour. They don't see it that way. How do they see it? There's no indication this is a live burial case. They've got a different clock than we do. And I don't think Smalley is working too hard on finding them now anyway. Why? He caught the perp. He's the hero. However this turns out isn't on him anymore, so long as there's a body to rot in the Fulton County jail. Tillman exhales again. It occurs to me that he's smoking. I've never seen him with a cigarette before, but this is as good a day to start as any. Fucking Smalley, he says. He wanted to be the one to call you, you know, ask me for your number. To say what? To call you off. But he probably just wanted to tell you, I was right and you were wrong. Piss on your shoes. It's the sort of thing Smalley would like to do. Yet there's something off about what Tillman's just said. The chief of a small-town police force locates the man he believes is a serial kidnapper and likely murderer, and the first thing he wants to do is get on the phone with the FBI psychic and tell him it's over? You know where Smalley is now? On his way to his office. Supposed to be there in half an hour. Press conference. His front page moment. So he's at home. I think so. Getting a clean shirt and polishing his bald spot. Now it's Tillman's turn to pause. Why are you asking? I just want to be at Municipal Hall when he gets there. Be the first to shake his hand. Don't do anything stupid. I'm still going to work on getting you in to see Marcuccio. A knockdown with the chief isn't going to help. I'll behave. You'll meet me down here? Yeah, I'll meet you. As soon as I've hung up, I called the only other number I have on my speed dial other than Fernandez and Tillman's. One I entered yesterday. Gail Stead. Gail, it's Nate Russo. Weird. I was about to call you. Well, I was going to call Agent Fernandez. She was the one who asked me to look up a bit more on people who used to live or who'd stayed in the Heinrichs place. But I understand she's gone missing too. It's terrible. Did you find something? I don't know if you'd call it something, but I found it interesting. Okay. She clears her throat. That tick that announces she's pleased with herself. That if nobody else is going to acknowledge she's good at her job, she will. Well, the chronology of tenantship is a little sketchy, as you'd imagine, she starts. And not every sublet was papered up. But among the ones I could find was a woman named Kraus. Divorced, little boy. New in town, left the husband back in Utica. This was in the early 60s, so he must have been a real SOB. She stayed in the place a year before moving on. Kraus? That's supposed to mean something? Not to you, but it rang the world's smallest bell with me. So I went a bit deeper and found that Kraus was her maiden name she signed the tenant agreement with, though legally her surname continued to be her ex-husband's, which was her boy's name too. I'm dressed in my brother's clothes and already halfway down the stairs. While Gail Stead was talking, what she would say to the question I asked her next arrived in advance. What's the name? Smalley, she says. Isn't that the darndest? 43. The operator gives me the home phone number to the only Smalley in Johnstown. She also gives me the address. Hoffman Street, 4 or 5 blocks north of Maine, 10 minutes. Less if I sprint the whole way. This is what an oversized man's body can do, fueled on nothing but caffeine and glucose and panic. It can move its legs at a speed that makes the air roar in its ears. It can defy the searing heat in one of its shoulder blades that's a sign that precedes the most serious collapses. And it can do all of this without need of oxygen. Because as I go, I use my breath to rehearse the same words aloud. Tell me where they are. Tell me where they are. Tell me. A police cruiser flies past me down Perry Street towards downtown. Its siren wailing, lights flashing. Colors. Blue and red and yellow. He'd picked up Allison in a police cruiser. A man she knew. Had seen in person, in the paper, on plywood stages at local events, street fairs and commemorations of local history, saying a few words into feedback screaming microphones. A man she trusted. Need a ride? I'm okay, the school's right there. So hop in, I know a shortcut. An exchange I hear is the real thing because it doesn't come from my imagination, but from Allison. Smalley's jokey harmlessness, the girl's belief in things as they appeared, the solid thunk of the car door as it closed, the way it locked automatically. A car specifically outfitted for the transport of prisoners. Later, taking her from place to place, from the treehouse to whatever ground she's under now, he'd put the lights on atop the car. Outside, the dawn not yet fully arrived, the town made up of shadows. Allison in the back fighting to remain conscious, to see where she was, to not let the dark sleep come. Flashing on the castle in the sky. Do you remember, Mom? Remember the castle. Past the White House where nobody lives anymore, and the muffler shop with a grizzly on the roof. Past the distant light towers illuminating the high school playing field where her secret boyfriend ran plays and snatched long bombs out of the sky. White lights in the stars. The cruiser flying north on the same street I dash along the side of now. If she'd been able to look, to focus, if I'd been there, she would have likely noted me too. An odd sight, one she would have similarly struggled to name. A running giant saying the same thing over to himself. Tell me where they are. 44. Smalley's house is a 1970s split level, an anachronism on a street of homes 50 or more years older than that. When it was built, this probably set it apart for all its modern luxuries, the attached garage, the front bay window. But it now appears merely forlorn, a prefab box among the brick walls laid by long-gone hands. I make my way up the driveway without a plan other than the question I'm still forming with my lips, though soundlessly now. It's all I can do to suck air and try not to dry heave into the Smalley's rose bushes. A doorbell button, flickering orange as if from a microscopic candle within. The chime it sounds when I press it needs new batteries. Whatever melody it normally plays comes out as the somber notes of a sluggish wedding march. It brings a woman to open the inside door and blink out at me through the screen door. She never stops moving, her body alive with syncopated twitches that fall short of being one of the serious diseases that might cause such a thing. Something about the wide eyes and forced smile make that clear. She's nervous, has spent her adult existence being nervous. Views her life as stretched out hours of tests to her ability to subdue her nerves. Mrs. Smalley? Yes? I'm Nate Russo, FBI, working with your husband on the Prue case. She jerks from a tiny burp that first surprises and then, after bringing a knuckle to her lips too late, horrifies her. Oh? Is the chief home? He's just getting changed. I'll wait for him here if that's okay. Fine, yes, that's fine. It doesn't appear fine to her at all. It's clear that staff never comes to the boss's house. Maybe nobody ever does. Mrs. Smalley couldn't take it if they did. She'd drop from the stress of making everything right, have a seizure if her husband complained that the steaks were overcooked. These images, which may be real memories I'm picking up through the screen even though I don't touch any part of her, make me pity her with a fierceness that prompts passing fantasies of rescue. Whispering, "You can leave him, you know," or scribbling the number of a divorce lawyer onto the back of a receipt in my wallet. Instead, I just stand there. We both do. Behind her, on the hallway's floor, there's a pile of dog things. A circular cotton bed, a pair of tartan leashes, a half-finished bag of kibble, a ceramic bowl monogrammed with an S. We lost our dog, she says, following my eyes. I mean, not lost. He died. Schnitzy died. Sorry to hear that. We're giving away his things. Kid around the corner with a new puppy. Might as well put it to use, right? Might as well. Poor Schnitzy. He's in a better place now. The last few weeks, it was hard. Cancer. We kept him comfortable, though. The vet gave us pain medicine and needles, and so we just helped him along. Know what I mean? Yes, I do. Poor Schnitzel. Poor Schnitzy. She shakes her head in a way that suggests she's less grief-stricken than puzzled by the dog's passing. No matter how hard she tries, she'll never figure out how the whole born and then you die racket works. And then her words pass through my head a second time. Something sticking there that didn't the first time. What kind of pain medicine was it? I ask. Oh, I don't know. Morphine for dogs, I guess. How big was your dog? Little. Shih Tzu. That's where his name came from. She adds with a pop of a laugh. Did you ever give him the needles yourself? She pauses at the intimacy of the question. But politeness, sheer upstate decency, forces her to answer. No, not me. I don't have the stomach for that sort of thing. That was my husband's department. Do you know where the medicine is now? Where he kept it? This requires a moment of real thought, her shoulders trembling as if emotion that powered her mental search of the house. No, I don't, she says finally. I'm sure Ted has it somewhere, though. Of course. Does she know? Not what her husband may have done, but that he is not what he has presented himself to be the entire time she's known him. My bet is he hasn't been cruel to her. Not physically, anyway. It isn't what she's witnessed him do, but what she's imagined. The emptiness she has discovered piece by piece that lay buried within his outward show of good-natured authority. It would make anyone twitchy. Mrs. Smalley, does your husband have a workshop? A place where he makes things with wood? She shivers. That's an odd question. I suppose it is. I make an attempt at a reassuring smile that feels lopsided and weird, even to me. But it seems to bring enough comfort for her to go on. Well, he wasn't a handyman sort until recently. Started sawing and banging in the shed out back. What was he working on? Lord knows. All he'd say is, it's a surprise. Like it's a birthday present he's making for me. She blinks so rapidly and for so long, I'm not sure she'll ever stop. Wouldn't that be something? From somewhere above her, the floor crunches. Her husband's weight making its way down the stairs. When he sees me at the door, he doesn't stop, doesn't hesitate, but everything changes. In his face, which hardens, the jowls and ball-peen nose turning to bloodless limestone, but also in the air of the house, the stillness that precedes the first roll of thunder. Oh, Ted, Mrs. Smalley says as if she's just noticed him, though she'd heard his approach before I did, before his first step out of the upstairs bathroom where he'd been squaring his tie in the mirror. Mr. Russo is here to speak with you. Smalley comes up behind his wife and places his hands atop her shoulders, the touch setting off a new series of jolts through her. He doesn't seem to notice, his eyes on me. Would you mind stepping out for a few minutes, sweetheart? He says. We'd like to have a private conversation. Oh, yes, of course, I'll be out in the yard. She turns to start back down the hall, but Smalley blocks her with an outstretched arm. I'd rather you went for a walk. Head on downtown, maybe. Wait for me at the office. She presses her lips together, releases them as if to speak, then clamps them shut again. It makes me think of a fish's mouth after being pulled up onto land. Fine. That's just fine. She mutters as she passes me, leaving a cloud of perfume behind, something floral and dense as funeral home air freshener. Tell me where they are, I say, but Smalley makes no indication that he's heard. He watches his wife go, only speaks once she's past the neighbor's hedge and is out of sight. Let's talk inside. He puts his back to the wall, giving me room to enter. A tight squeeze. As I shuffle past, I keep expecting him to whisper a profanity in my ear, or hook a foot around my ankle or spit. But he only breathes. A cold-cut flavored wind worked up from the bellows of his lungs. There's a pristine, formal living room to the right that, judging from the fresh vacuum lines on the carpet and protective plastic on the sofa, nobody ever enters, let alone sits in. But I start in anyway. Not in there, Smalley says. The wife would kill me if you left a mark on anything. I ignore him. Stand with my back against the fireplace, the neatly arranged little ceramic dogs on the mantel. How'd you keep Schnitzy out of here? I ask him. Sorry for your loss, by the way. He crosses his arms, uncrosses them. It's like they're new appendages that came with his clean shirt and he doesn't know where they ought to go. What are you doing here? He says. I think you know. No, I don't. Where are they? Who? Allison and Claire. Where did you bury them? He snorts. Not a sound of disbelief, but an allergic sneeze. accompanied by a violent shake of his head that throws a thread of snot out onto the loveseat's armrest. Okay, he says. Okay, you've got to get the fuck out of here. I'm the only guy in the world who understands what you've seen, what you've done. I honestly don't want there to be trouble today, but I'm ready for it. With you, in my house, I'm more than ready for it. Still, I just ironed these pants, so I'm telling you one more time. Get the fuck out of here. It's not clear to me why I do it. Maybe I hope it will make him show himself. Or maybe I'm just ready for trouble the same as Smalley is. Either way, without taking my eyes off him, I sweep the menagerie of dogs off the mantel. The two of us listening to their puffy tails and ribboned heads smashing on the brick hearth at my feet. It's you, I say. Me what, for fuck's sakes? You're just standing here saying shit. You picked Allison up and stuck her with the needle the vet gave you to put your dog down. Drove around town waiting for her to pass out, but she fought it. Took longer than you thought, but eventually her eyes closed and you hit her in the treehouse. I'm guessing you had somewhere else in mind, but you ran out of time. Had to deliver the girl some food, something to drink, because you didn't want her to die up there. He decides when and where they do that. And it wasn't a treehouse, that's for damn sure. You're insane, holy Christ, just listen. But you're the chief. You can slip away when you need to. Pull Allison out of that wood box up in a tree where she was half frozen and carry her back to your car and took her someplace else. Put her in a different wood box. Then did the same with Fernandez when that voice in your head told you to, a box big enough for two. He takes a step onto the creamy perfection of the carpet and then back again. It's as though I stand on an island just off the shore, but he can't get to me because he doesn't know how to swim. This accusation you're making, he says, is it another vision of yours? Partly. It's putting together all the things Allison told me in my reading of her mother. It's real things, too. Something changes in him. Without an alteration of his expression, without moving, there's a shift. It comes with an unpleasant sensation of weightlessness, as if the floor of Smalley's house has dropped out under our feet like an elevator in free fall. Why are you here alone? He says. Where's your partner? Tillman? It didn't really come to me before this. The danger I'm in. Unarmed, alone. It makes me wonder if there's a back door out of here. Not that it would help if there was. To reach it, I'd have to get around Smalley. There is no way out other than through him. I've told him everything, I say. Tillman has all the evidence we need to nail you. Smalley smiles, broad and foul. But that's not true, is it? I called him just before I came to the door. He's on his way. No, he says and takes a sure step onto the carpet, then another. I don't think he is. Smalley takes the service revolver out of its holster, points it at me. Don't, I say. What else am I going to do? A man comes into my house, breaks my wife's precious things, smears his DNA all over the place, threatening me. Nobody will see it that way. You got quite a history of violence, Nate. I looked you up. If I'm smart about it, I can juggle you against the dirty gym teacher for a while, keep everybody busy, but that'll just be gravy. I won't need that much time. It'll all be over by the time I sit down at the counter over at the Miss Johnstown diner for lunch and order the special of the day. Because they're never going to find them. Not now. Where are they? Smalley doesn't acknowledge the question. Instead, he surveys the room, from the picture window to the antique map of New York State on the wall, each item causing him to flare his nostrils or shake his head as if they told individual stories of foolishness. We'll never get the blood out of the carpet if I do, you hear, he says. But you know something? I never liked the carpet in here. He's not going to tell me anything about Alice and Claire if I come at him straight. But he's going to shoot me dead in the next 5 seconds if I don't get him talking about something else. So I ask him a question that, once it's out in the overly air-freshened space of the sitting room, I hear is one I'd genuinely like to know the answer to. Which room was yours? In the house on Henry Street. Where did you see him? It was just my mother and I. He answers casually, enjoying the voiced memory of things he has never spoken of to another. No money, and we were scared. We thought the old man might come after us, that he might be pissed off to discover that his wife and son had run away. Turns out, he couldn't have given less of a shit. But at the time, we were living on what my mother pulled out of his pants pockets before we left. So we only took the one room, my mother and I in the same bed. First on the left at the top of the stairs. My room. Well, then you'd know. You'd know what it was like to feel him there by the window. Know he was there without looking. Coming closer, willing you to look in his face. And you did. The very first night. "I'll never leave you," he said. "I will be your father now." And you know something? I was grateful. I knew he was the devil or a monster or something very, very wrong. I knew he would eventually make me do terrible things. But it would be worth it. It would be something special. And it was. All 3 times. Smalley grins. It knocks me back against the mantel. 3 times. Come on, Nate. I know you're a bullshit psychic, but anyone with a goddamn brain should be able to do the math. Help me. He sighs. The oh-so-nimble Prue girl, Special Agent Hot-Ass Fernandez, and Little Red Riding Hood herself. Pauline Alt. There you go. There you fucking finally go. It shouldn't shock me as much as it does. He grew up here, went to school here, knows every hidden woodlot corner and vacant lot, every treehouse. Yet the idea that it was Smalley, both then and now, strikes me as something I should have been able to see. We are brothers of a kind, after all. The Bone Man's children. Why her? She was in my class. Pretty, but kind of a loner. Miles above us Slavs, know what I'm saying? She read books, for Christ's sakes. But that's not why it had to be Pauline. It's because he told you it was her. He gives these things quite a lot of thought, Smalley says, sticking a finger into his ear and pulling something out that he gives a moment attention to before flicking it onto the ottoman. But you'd know that, wouldn't you, Nathaniel? He's thought about you maybe more than anyone. A flare of something rises in him at this. Jealousy, perhaps, or the reminder that there was still work to be done, and here he is, wasting his time with me. And he lifts the gun into his line of sight. It takes a moment, not fixing his aim on me, but the calculations required of setting up a scene of self-defense. Right now, he's too far away to fit the story of responding to attack, so he steps closer. I'm not thinking of dying, not thinking of Allison or Fernandez either. Right at the end, it's Jalen Jackson who is with me. The look on the boy's face when he offered me both hands for me to read so that I could bring his mother home. A child's naked hope invested in the wrong man and gone forever less than 4 hours later. Just tell me, I say. What's it matter now? There's nothing he can do. Shut up, will you? I'm figuring out where your brains ought to go. He looks only at me, just as the gun does. For the second time today, I'm rushing toward the thing that will most likely kill me. I feel the hit, a scalding cut through the soft flesh above the elbow. Before the gun jolts, its snout flashing and smoking in Smalley's hand. A sequence I see, even have the time to ponder as my mind drifts above the ongoing events. An impossible reversal, the impact before the trigger pulled, in the way we recall a distant heartbreak, the lover already gone before the words that announced their departure. I've been shot. After all the gouged eyes, headbutts, Charlie horses, dislocated jaws, all the flesh ripped by glass, switchblade, and oyster fork, this is a first. And it's true, what all the shot people say. There's nothing like it. Smalley's finger squeezes off another. This one I don't feel late. It must miss me because I don't feel it at all. But I do feel Smalley. All dense weight and cop's belt and chunky watch cracking into my ear. I'm expecting to get a read from him at the contact, to see confirmation of how he took Allison and Claire, maybe even glimpse where he put them. But there's nothing. No, not nothing. A darkness. hard and lifeless as stone. The gun is hard too. It brings me out of the darkness to feel it in my side, probing under my ribs as if he wants to fire up through my lungs and out my mouth. There's one thing preventing him. He can't squeeze the trigger. I know because for the time he thumped the side of my head with his Timex, I found the hand that holds the gun, pulled his index finger back, and, with a twist, broke it at the knuckle. It brought only the smallest yip out of Smalley. The sort of noise Schnitzy might have made at a rolled newspaper tapped against his snout. There is now perhaps 2 or 3 seconds more than there was, because he has other fingers, 4 hairy sausages I can see fighting for the trigger even as they hold the gun halfway to my spine. I plow him against the wall. It dislodges the gun from my side so that I can bring my knee up against his forearm, slamming it into the mirror the bone man appeared out of. On the third impact, the glass shatters, 100 shards that might be brought to Smalley's throat on the floor, but he still doesn't let go of the gun. If we stay where we are, he'll eventually find a way to use it. So I pull him off the mirror, our feet crunching over the shattered glass, 2 big bodies kicking and punching without the range to do the damage they wish, held in a clenched Smalley resist but that I can't release him from. We head down the hall together. Minus the blood, we'd appear like 2 men wrestling over who gets to take the lead in a waltz. In the kitchen, with more room, we stop being bad dancers. We're propellers, smashing things off countertops and the wooden table, but going too fast, the room too blurred to see what they are. And besides, I'm concentrating. Which drawer is most likely to hold the knives? That one. I spike the toe of my shoe into Smalley's shin at the same time I push off him. Pull the drawer out. I'm right. It's the drawer that keeps all the knick-knack stuff. Corn on the cob holders with pink piggies for handles, fondue forks, a kitchen timer in the shape of a green pepper, along with a carving knife, a length of German steel resting atop the novelties as if guarding them. I'm reaching for it when there's a thud behind me. Smalley's gun dropped to the floor. I don't look, but pause nevertheless. Carry on and use the knife, or swing back and be first for the revolver. The millisecond of consideration is time enough for Smalley to shoulder me aside and pull the knife from the drawer himself. His new questions now. Go at him or back away? Drop and crawl to the gun? Say something that might buy a second or two? I don't get answers to any of them. The knife. Smalley extending his arm, the handle tight in his good hand, the point going in just below my ribs, and keeps going. The pain isn't at all like the burning heat of being shot. Knives are cold. Knives are ice. Smalley releases the handle, steps away to admire what he's managed to do, the black plastic the only part that can still be seen. It's a mistake, because I'm pulling it out with both hands. The ice twice as hard, twice as cold as it exits. Both Smalley and I noting its retreat as if a curious animal behaving in an unexpected way. When the knife is free, I run it into the center of his chest. Not through his heart, but near enough. He falls, and I fall with him. Onto him, holding the blade down. Tell me where they are! I pull the knife out, hold it over him. The drips onto his cheeks, making him flinch more than all the other damage. Tell me! Smalley parts his lips into an oval, searching for a shape that will yield the words he's looking for. Can you hear Nathaniel? Not Smalley's voice. The bone man's. Can you hear them scream? I bring the knife down again. So deep this time it goes all the way through to the floor. Pins him there. The blood has made the linoleum slippery. When my juddering arm gives way, it sends me sliding back against the cupboard doors under the sink. My legs out in front of me, my back held straight. A position I found myself in many times before. The drunk's collapse on his way to or from the fridge. I watch Smalley die, just as he watches me. A motionless race we both fight to come second in. Nathaniel. My hand over the wound in my gut, holding myself in. Soon it's glued there, a white-fingered glove stuck to the soaked cotton. Time to come home. Like Allison, I do my best to not let the dark sleep come. but it comes all the same. Part 6. The Box. 45. When I open my eyes, I'm in Smalley's kitchen. My back against the cupboard doors under the sink as I had been before I blacked out. Smalley's still lying there too. Still dead. Just as dead as Jalen Jackson's mom, who comes down the hall, her bare feet sucking and popping through the blood to stand over me. You gotta wake up. She doesn't appear unfriendly. Stern, maybe. But then she strikes me as always having been a stern woman anyway. She had to make things work on her own. She had a son to raise. There wasn't any room for nonsense in her world. But you're dead, I want to say. I am awake, I hear myself say instead. She kneels so I can look at her straight on. No, you're not. They don't need you over here. They need you back there. I think I know what she's talking about, but it slips away. It's hard work, like algebra or trying to apologize to someone you've wronged with words that might actually make a difference. I'm not sure that you need to wake up now. She swings her face up close to mine. Wake the hell up. My head launches forward, then back again, slamming against the cupboard doors. It works. It wakes me the hell up. Holy shit, Tillman says, kneeling in front of me at the same face-to-face angle as Aaliyah Jackson just had. You're alive. Around us, the kitchen is as it was, except there's even more blood now, expanding its borders from under Smalley like an army claiming new continents of linoleum for itself. What happened here, Nate? I point my chin at Smalley. He dead? Yes? Good, I say. Because he did it. He's the one. Smalley? I figured it out, came here, then he told me. Used his dog's anesthetic to knock Allison out. Took her somewhere. Fernandez, too. Tillman glances at Smalley's body as if expecting it to sit up and provide a proper explanation. Why? He says. Why him? Because he lived in the house on Henry Street as a kid. Because the Bone Man told him to. I almost tell Tillman about Pauline Alt, but don't. Partly to save him from being overwhelmed by an onslaught of wild revelations. Partly to avoid talking any more than I have to because it hurts so much. Did he tell you where they are? He asks, knowing already that if he had, I would have told him. No, nothing. He curls out his lower lip, a gesture I've been around him so long I'm able to read for what it means. We're done here. It's the same curling lip he showed at Aaliyah Jackson's grave and all the other graves we've stood over. There's nothing more to be done. Then his phone is out and he's bringing the dial pad onto the screen. What are you doing? Calling an ambulance. Don't. What? Put the phone down, John. Maybe it's my calling him by his first name that does it. He puts the phone down. Give me your hand, I say. Tillman looks at my own upturned hand leaning on top of my knee as if it had no place being there. And then the implication of my words comes over him, his head shaking in big sweeps, side to side. I don't think so, he says. I need to read someone who knows her. Someone who cares for her. Sure, but you love her, right? Jesus, Nate, what? Me too. And I'd read myself if it worked that way, but it doesn't. So give me your hand and think of Claire. Should be easy. Of course he has feelings for Claire. Ones that may even be deeper and based on greater knowledge of her character than mine. But Tillman is a federal agent, a smart guy who's had his emotions rewired into the machinery of a cop. Until this moment, he's been near totally successful in denying that his search for his partner was any different from all the other searches. Now it hits him. How close we are to the end. He reaches out his palm, about to lay it down on my palm when I curl it into a fist. I do this, and you take me with you, I say. Wrong. Have you been following the storyline here, Nate? You've been stabbed. Check it yourself. The bleed isn't bad. I look at him, try to convey a few things all at once. That I'm serious what I'm saying, that it's not just about me, that it has to be this way. Okay, he says. Okay what? You're coming with me. My fingers pull open again and Tillman lands his hand in mine, the blood fusing skin to skin. 46. Running. Claire's breathing, her sure step, not fleeing, but working her body. Alone on the edge of a side road with nothing but a self-storage barracks on the right, a vacant lot and teetering sign offering land for sale or lease, you buy or we build. On the left, her morning jog. The paved sections of the road ends. Ahead, a gravel track snaking over a creek and into a stand of trees. She starts back. A car. Johnstown police. There's no suspicion, no hesitation. She rushes to the driver's window to hear whatever news is meant for her. Smalley's face. Grim orange pouches atop his cheeks. You should get in, he says. He drives straight, onto the gravel section of road, over the bridge, stops in the middle of the trees and gets out. Claire puts her hand on the door handle, but he stops her. Wait here. He comes around to her side, his service revolver pointed at her face. Put these on, he says, and tosses a pair of handcuffs into her lap. Once she does, he pulls the loaded syringe out of his pocket, sticks it in the base of her neck, pushes the dark sleep in. Asleep against her door so that, when he opens it, she falls to the ground. It wakes her. Flashes of where she is, Smalley towering over her, his hands cupped under her arms, dragging her up a slope. Below, 300 feet off, the end of a street lined with homes so broken and slouched they may all be abandoned. Trees, here and there, saplings, something less than a forest on either side. At the top of the slope, a pair of man-made things. A shed, a steel tower, tall and thin, a cross-hatching of metal struts, a point at the top with its aerial warning light still blinking, 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 just as he does. Until the hole. The box at the bottom. A sound from inside that makes Claire scream, but the scream doesn't come. Swallowed up by the dark sleep inside of her. Scratches. It throws my back against the cupboard door. My hand pulled from Tillman's to clamp against my wound. What did you see? Tillman is asking me. Did you see her? Yes. You know where she is? He took her to a place he knew from the war. His war. What war, Nate? A tower on the hill. I'm not a radio tower. Tillman wipes his palm over his face. It leaves a crimson tattoo on his cheek. I don't think Johnstown has one of those, he says. But Gloversville does. Up Perry Street North. It's where he took Allison, too. Tillman stands. Let's go, he says. I try to get to my feet on my own, but my head spins. Sets my ass back on Smalley's butcher shop floor. Gonna need a little help here, I say. Tillman kneels, lifts me against him in the way firemen drag bodies out of burning buildings. Lets my feet tap along down the hall in the illusion that I'm walking on my own steam. 47. We're out on the cement porch when Tillman stops. Christ, what's wrong with him? My brother's voice says. He's standing on the Smalley's lawn, heaving for breath, sawdust clinging to his lumberjack shirt, the glaze of hungover sweat shining on every exposed inch of his skin. What are you doing here? I ask him, though I think I already know. I had a dream or something, Tim says, shaking his head at the remarkable turn of his day so far. The sort of head shake that, in O'Connell's or any of the other 1,000 bar rooms that he's called his home office, signal the beginning of an amazing tale. One that confirmed his unavoidable place at the center of bizarre events. I saw you. You were in trouble. How'd you know where I was? He sweeps his arm over at the Smalley's house. You were here. Your brother? Tillman asks. Tim Russo? This is Special Agent Tillman. Oh, Tim says, slipping his hands in his pockets to feel for the baggie of weed he has there. This Sear stuff running the family? That it? Maybe you got it too, I say. Don't think so. Then why did you come here? Tillman looks skyward. Your voice on the phone, and then I had a feeling. He lowers his head again, the baffled look of a man who can't even guess how the simplest card trick might have been done right before his eyes. All three of us hear them. The sirens coming from all directions. A closing circle of howling wolves. We need to go, I say. Now. What about him? Tillman asks, looking at Tim as the unwieldy problem he is. We bring him. What the hell for? I'm already falling into the back of the car, refusing to show the new explosions of pain it causes. He can dig, I say. 48. Tillman gets behind the wheel and Tim hasn't even closed the passenger side door when he peels off toward Perry Street. I'm in the back, squinting out the rear window as we take the turn without touching the brake just as the first Johnstown police cruiser comes around the corner at the opposite end of the block. I can't tell if they see us or not, but once they head into the chief's house and find him staked to his kitchen floor, they'll find us soon enough. We don't need much time. There isn't any of that left anyway. My phone reads 12:24. Too late already. Let's go! Hold on, Tillman says as the car lifts higher on its suspension, half off the ground and half off the air. I prefer the airborne moments to the contact with the street. The latter jolts my body around, which brings new definitions of pain. It also shifts my hands that clutch against the knife's entry point so that a spill of fresh heat trickles down my stomach, through my pants and onto the seat. It makes a sound now. Every bump squishes. Lying sideways propped on an elbow seems to work best, until it doesn't. So I do what Allison did. I focus on the world outside the car's window, the glimpses of home my brain can't put a name to. North on Perry, where the snarling Kodiak atop bare muffler makes eye contact with me, threatening to leap onto the roof of the Dodge below and come after us. And a sign I'd never noticed before, the paint faded. The building it's attached to, windows smashed and dark despite the curled, open card hanging by a string against the door. Fat Guy Body Shop. Now we're racing along the same route towards where she is now. If I'm right. If the Bone Man hasn't set this up as a masterful trick, one that will break the spirit of the only man who's looked into his eyes in the night and not done as he was told. If she and Claire... No, that's not allowed. Only the world outside the window. A frenzied blur of upstate postcards nobody would ever send. Homes with loose plastic tacked to the inside of windows, failed efforts to keep the winter drafts out. Many of the properties uninhabited but not given up on. Not entirely. Wood beams buttressing a lopsided porch. Plywood protecting main floor windows from damage, even with the second floor windows shattered and gaping like fangs. Tillman's palm on the horn the whole way, swerving, cursing, teaching the car to fly. We're in the gap between the two towns. A relative straightaway somewhere along which Johnstown's Perry Street becomes Gloversville Main Street. A breath, and then it all starts again. The hardscrabble outskirts, the plastic-covered windows, the open signs and closed businesses. It costs me a shriek, but I turn to look back. They're coming, at a distance and not as fast as us, but a line of flashing lights, jostling to be the first. I see them, Tillman says. What are we doing here, guys? This is Tim. A question that goes unanswered, but I ask him one of my own. What's up with all those pills? Pills? The tranks in your duffel bag. You planning on selling them? No. Then what are... I'm not the happiest guy in the world, Tim says, abruptly turning around to look at me, his eyes red-rimmed. Okay, little brother? You were planning on taking them? I wasn't really planning on anything, but I stocked them up just in case. My out, know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, Tim. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. But look at you. I don't want to. So I keep looking out the windshield. Find a toothpick rising up in the distance to the west behind the storefronts and tannery buildings. The only line pointed up at the horizon. I think that's it, I shout up to Tillman. Over there to the left. I know where it is, he says even as he looks in the direction I've given him, spotting it a block late. Tillman slams the wheel to the left, making the turn, but taking out a newspaper box with the back end as he goes. The radio tower is before us now, caught in snatches between the duplexes and basswoods. Up an incline at the end of a side street that isn't a proper cul-de-sac or even a dead end, but a thing that simply gives way to a thatch of nettles. Tillman drives on. Past the end of the pavement and into the weeds, as far up the hill as the car lets him before the front bumper buries itself in the soft mulch. There's 2 shovels in the back, he tells Tim, popping the trunk. My brother surprises me by jumping out of the car and pulling the tools out without a word. It's Tillman's face. Don't be smart. Don't ask. Just move. Help me out of here, I say to Tillman as he reaches down into the passenger footwell, pulls up a hammer and knees open the door. Stay put. Fuck that. I've got my hand on the inside door handle to leverage myself to my feet, but Tillman and Tim are already bounding up the incline, the shovels they carry pumping at their sides. It takes a second or two, but I manage to get out and start after them. It hurts to be on my feet. It hurts to feel the wan sun on my face. Even the smell of the stubby pines causes pinpricks in my nose. The Bone Man would have known all about this. A soldier, a self-shedder in a skin mill vat. He was an expert on all the flavors of bodily pain. I trudge up the slope, hands on my knees, almost lifting my legs with each step as if the final thin air descent on a Himalayan peak. Every motion, every part of me, every sip of air, all of it hurts. A dozen feet from the car and I'm hit by a dizzy spell. The ground coming up fast, and then I'm lying on it. Not a fall as much as a folding. Like taking down a tent, returning it to a size that could fit in a sack. I'm fighting to stay conscious and think through the ways I might regain my footing and continue up the hill when I'm aware of a figure standing over me. Not Tillman or Tim, who are now 20 feet or so to the right of the tower's base, digging, side by side, tearing at the earth and throwing it behind them. A figure whose shredded pants bottoms cling to the flesh beneath, the legs caked in dried blood. You want to see, don't you, Nathaniel? I managed to turn my head to meet the dead man's eyes. His pretend sympathy so triumphant it prompts a dry heave of guts, a string of yellow bile onto the grass beneath me. Come so far to never know. He steps closer, brings his odor with him. It seems to come out of the earth under both of us. All the graves of the world pushing what lies underground up through the grains of soil and stone and sand. It smells like skin mill, like a battlefield. A blind man on the ground, just like all the other cowards. He lifts one of his boots, places it into the center of my back. You should have opened your eyes to the way things are, the way I told you to. His knees bend, as if he's going to crouch down close to me and say something more. But he doesn't get close enough for that. Instead, he shoots up, the knees straightening, launching himself into the air. When his boots come down, they come down on me. A blaze of pure white, an instantaneous transformation from man to fire, the flames screeching. It goes out. A vacuum that claims all light, all air, all sound. Not unconsciousness or drunken blackout. Not the oblivion I've been ashamed to wish for sometimes. A void. The word comes to me like the name of the first girl you ever kissed. Ghostly and useless. This is what nothing is. The Bone Man. Not with me, but inside me. Where a part of him has always been. This is where I live, Nathaniel. Where you will live with me. I'm almost there, almost his. But a flicker of pain remains. The fire that's burned at me all my life. The one that lets me see. Something takes hold of me in the darkness. An iron grip along the length of my spine. And then, with a chiropractic crack of bone, a shriek of white fire, I'm back. The Bone Man isn't next to me anymore, which means his boots are no longer trying to press me into the earth. A helpful thing when you've lost a lot of blood and it feels like someone is flicking the lights on and off as fast as they can inside your head, and all you're trying to do is stand. But I don't fall again. I can't let myself. It's easier now, though. The hurt gone, my legs moving on their own power. It doesn't even feel like my shoes touch the ground as it passes. The radio tower casts a checkerboard shadow over the ground ahead and I follow the lines. Each square I put behind me brings me closer to the hole. I can't see it yet, but I know it's there. My brother and Tillman working even faster now than when they made the first swing down into the same soil Smalley had padded firm this morning. The spade heads hit wood. It makes them pause. It also lets us hear the scratching. For a second, there is no other sound but this. No cries to be freed, no pleas of any kind, only nails against wood. Then even this stops. "Get out!" Tillman shouts at Tim. "Get out of the hole!" My brother rolls onto the ground, chewing at air. I come up closer to him, but he doesn't notice me. The two of us watching Tillman pry the box's lid off with the shovel's blade, and then, when he can't find the leverage to make it work, the teeth of the hammer he'd carried up with him from the floor of the car. The lid wrenches up, the nails that held it down surrendering in tiny shrieks. When it pulls free, Tillman lifts the lid and heaves it out onto the ground. It's quiet. The silence that follows the abrupt end of a terrible noise. An echo of scratches. The pale sun reaches into the hole and shows us what's there. The two of them, wrapped around each other in the cramped box. Allison Prue still wearing her Knox Junior High hoodie, her soiled track pants. Fernandez's mouth close to her ear as if the whole time they were down there she'd been whispering instructions to the girl. Small encouragements. Don't cry. Take small breaths. Keeping her calm and never letting go. They're coming for us. We're getting out. They're coming. Now the two of them are still. But Fernandez's mouth is open. Breathing. Her lips parted. Taking in air. Tillman helps her out. I make a move to go to her, but I'm so lightheaded I'd end up falling in with them. A moment later, she's standing. The bottom half of her in the hole, the top half in the world of light. Fernandez won't let go of the girl, so eventually they come out together. Tim on one side of them, Tillman on the other. The two men lifting them at the elbows. The girl unmoving. Claire looks my way. She has to blink her eyes clear to see me. But then I come into focus, and for the first time in a long time, I'm present. Really here, now. We don't say anything. She still hasn't answered Tillman's repeated asking of, "You okay?" But there's more that passes between us than if we did. Gratitude. Astonishment. A fizzing intoxication lighter than any high. Allison shivers, and then, as if at the sounding of a whistle, she turns her head and sees me too. "They're alive," I hear someone say. I turn to my left to see whose voice the words belong to. See that it is Aaliyah Jackson with me. She can't be, but she is. "Over here," an officer shouting somewhere behind us. "Need some help here." There's a man on the ground, over by Tillman's car. The ragged form of a face-down man of considerable size. Arm above his head, nails dug into the soil as if he'd been trying to pull himself up the slope by the fingers. But the other 200 pounds of him refuse to cooperate. He's wearing my shirt, I think. How'd he get my shirt? I'm not aware of doing it, but I'm standing on tiptoes to get a better view. And then, higher than that, maybe a whole foot off the ground. It lets me see the face of the man on the ground as a pair of officers turn him over onto his back. Bloodless, wide-eyed, his lips shaped in an expression of amusement, or perhaps surprise. He's dead. That's clear now. Along with something else. He's me. The officers who aren't already tending to the man, along with the first arriving pair of paramedics, make their way past me. None meet my eyes. None look my way at all. They slip by without touching me, some so close I should feel the wake of air their movement creates, but I don't. "Claire?" I say, or try to, but nothing comes out. I'm growing. This comes to me first. I'm taller, but that's not what it is. I'm floating. which is what it feels like, too. A slow rising, as if everything inside of me has been traded for lighter parts, and now I'm airborne. All the pain I had taken from others and carried within me, both the pain of my own making and the injuries inflicted on me, easing out like a breath I'd held for as long as I could, and was now escaping into the air. On the inside, it was held as a solid mass, but comes out weightless, invisible, benign, nothing at all. I watched Tillman rush down to where a cop is giving the man on the ground CPR, but he clearly doesn't know what he's doing. Tim follows Tillman down the slope too, the two of them shouting, people shouting everywhere now, coming out of their cars, the ambulances, but I can't hear any of them. When he reaches the fallen man, Tillman pushes the cop away and bends to blow his breath into the man's mouth and pushes hands down on his chest with all his weight, looking for life that isn't there. Because I'm here. Below, the streets of Gloversville, and just to the south, Johnstown attached to it. Now little more than a canopy of autumn trees and church spires poking through like sewing pins affixing all of it to the earth. I look for the house on Henry Street and find it for a moment. The schoolhouse roof and blue shingles, the side yard a pointillistic square of fallen leaves. Then it's gone again, swallowed into the widening landscape. The town's shrinking, the throughway throwing glints of chrome and windshield skyward. The Adirondacks, a dimpled quilt of yellows and oranges and reds, all thrown atop the sleeping body of a giant so vast its head lies somewhere over the horizon. A word comes to me. My word. Not one I've ever used to give a name to a place before, but I'm grateful for it. Home. Tillman blows another breath into the dead man's lungs. It fills my chest, the taste of his sour coffee and cinnamon gum at the back of my throat. The next breath comes in all on its own. The weight of it so great I'm an empty balloon poured full of mercury, turning my fingers into steel rods, my feet into anchors. I fight to stay up, but the air pulls me down, flattening me onto my back with the suddenness of an unexpected fist. I was the sky, now I'm the ground. A living thing that remembers, that hurts, that already longs for the receding freedom from itself. You hear me? The voice is asking me. Claire's. Her face now, too. A round eclipse against the sun. You hear me, Nate? There's something else I'd like to say, but I can't think of the words. So I tell her what she already knows. I can see you, I say. I can see everything.
If you loved Oracle, follow your killer instincts and listen to a free preview of the follow-up series Oracle 2: The Dreamland Murders now.